They say it, and it's true, that everything is getting faster. You're not getting any younger, and time is the single resource that you can never get back or get any more of. So why walk into your local comic shop blind when you can go in laser focused on the best books on the shelf?
Hi everybody, and welcome to Minute to Skim It. Yeah!
Spend 1 hour with Miss Jen and Bean, and they'll give you rapid-fire reviews of all the new comics hitting stores. Spend less time shopping and more time reading.
This is Provenance of Secrets.
This is The Heathens. I read Wolverine number 17.
Minute to Skim It, every Tuesday at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Dan Wickline Show. It is Tuesday. We are back here for another week, and we have got a really strong lineup of episodes this week. Today, we are going to talk about the latest episode of Peacemaker that dropped late last week. We are going to talk about setting expectations for tonight's Book of Boba Fett finale. And the rest of the week, we're going to have, tomorrow, we are going to talk about the new Reacher series on Amazon Prime, along with the next 3 episodes of Vox Machina. And then on Thursday, we're going to dedicate that time to a spoilery conversation about that Book of Boba Fett finale and see if they delivered on what has got to be one of the strangest series I've come across. Strange by way of expectations. But we'll get to that in that part of it. But before we go any further, I want to jump back to talking about Jack Reacher. Now, the series is called Reacher. If that seems familiar to you, that's like, well, wait, weren't those movies? Yes, there was 2 Jack Reacher movies starring Tom Cruise. The biggest complaint against Cruise, if you had never read the books by Lee Childs, then you wouldn't even care about that it was Tom Cruise or anybody else. You just wanted a good movie. But if you had read the books, then you'll know that Jack Reacher is supposed to be 6'5" and just an intimidating presence. Basically, people avoid fighting him because he looks like he's going to hurt you. Tom Cruise doesn't have that look. Tom Cruise is 5'7". Now, they got this guy named Alan Ritchson. Now, you've probably come across Alan Ritchson before if you're watching a show like this. He's currently playing Hawk on Titans for HBO Max. He played Aquaman, or AC, as they called him, on Smallville. And he's just been around a while, but he's this really big guy. But he's not as big as we think he is. I mean, they do a good job making him look really imposing in the show. But Alan Ritchson is only 6'2". Now, I know a lot of people are out there going, what do you mean only 6'2"? I'm 6'6". I get to say only 6'2". So, but it was a really good series. I ended up watching it. It debuted at midnight Thursday night, Friday morning. Hey, Mark. Yeah, I'm glad you. And that's the news I'm getting to is it dropped Thursday night, Friday morning. I ended up binge watching it over that night. So by 7 a.m. Friday morning, I had finished all 8 episodes. And thinking, I should rewatch this. I should. But 2 things came out of it for me. One was the hope that it'd be a second season. And the second is being that it's an Amazon Prime series, and they've recently done the Jack Ryan series over on Amazon Prime. I would really like for those 2 characters to cross over. Because I think Jack Ryan and Jack Reacher would make an interesting crossover pairing and would work in both of their worlds would match up pretty well. Kyle says, as a 6'2" person, only 6'2" is correct. But the other news is that yesterday evening, Amazon came out and they already renewed it for a second season. Call it a pair of jacks. Very nice. But yeah, so they already called up a second season, which I think is great. Now, the interesting thing about the Lee Child's books is rarely do they use the same supporting characters. Reacher has gotten out of the service, and his whole thing is traveling and doing what he wants. And, we get that in the series. He's got like a wad of cash, his passport, and a pocket knife or something. And that's all he has on him. I don't even think he has a pocket knife. Oh, he has his war medal that yeah. And that's all he has on him. Now, no, I'm gonna do a spoiler conversation tomorrow, Mark. So you got tonight to finish. But so basically each book is him going on to another scenario. So sometimes he gets pulled into them, sometimes he wanders into them, stuff like that. He also has gum and a paperclip just in case we need MacGyver vibes. So, yeah. So the characters like Willis Fitzgerald's character, Malcolm Goodwin's character, there's a good chance we won't be seeing any of them again. We may see Neely, who is a recurring character, but other than that, they don't have to worry about renewing all those people. They can go anywhere they want. There is, oh God, there's an insane number of books in the series. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think I want to say it's like 40 books. I mean, Lee Childs is just cranking them out, and then his real name is not Lee Childs, but B, he's passing the books over. His brother is going to start taking them over and writing under the name of Andrew Child. So they're going to continue. But yeah, so he's just been cranking out these Reacher books, one a year for a long time now. And then there's spin-off books. There are people who have created characters that are searching for Reacher. So their entire book series is all about Reacher is kind of the white whale that they're going after, but that he never appears in their series because somebody else writes it, and Lee has always wanted to do crossover. Lee Childs has always done crossovers. So, hey, Derpy. So there could be crossovers. So I'd love to see it. And I put it online. I put it out there in the ether that I want to see, Alan Richardson pop up in the next Jack Ryan series, because I think it would make a lot of sense, because he's constantly, I need this military person, or I need that person to look into something. And they're writing all the Jack Ryan stuff fresh. They're not translating or adapting any of the particular novels, because this is the early days of Jack. So I think it would be fascinating. Oh, Derby says he has gotten secure tickets for Batman at the fan event on the 1st. Very cool, man. Good luck. Good job. I hope you enjoy it. I'm looking forward to seeing the Batman. That should be a lot of fun. I'm not sure what Matt Reeves has in mind for the character, but it's got definitely a unique dark vibe that I'm looking forward to. So, all right, let's move on to our main topic of the day. Yeah, John Krasinski is a tallish person, so I think it'd be fun to see the two of them interacting. All right, let's go on to the 6th episode of Peacemaker. Now, it's hard not to compare and contrast Peacemaker to Boba Fett right now, not from a point of view of that they're similar shows. There's an absurdity to Peacemaker. There is a over-the-top violence to Peacemaker, stuff like that. Boba Fett is definitely a Star Wars show. The similarity, though, is the fact that they're both shows. One's a 7-episode show, one's an 8-episode show. Coming out of episode 6 of Book of Boba Fett, it feels like, sweet Jesus, what are they going to do with one episode? How are they going to wrap all this up when we've spent the last 2 episodes on completely other things than the plot? How are we going to resolve any of this? Now, episode 6 of Peacemaker ends, and it feels like we are built up for a finale. We have got all the antagonists lined up. Everything is set. We're going to get the big war. Most of everything has been revealed. We're going to get this big blowout finale. And that's when you go, oh, wait, there's 2 episodes left. Oops. So in 6 episodes, Peacemaker has done a remarkable job of building up anticipation, building up all the storylines, all the characters, and we're ready to go for the finale, and we still have 2 episodes left. And Book of Boba Fett was doing a slow build-up, but a build-up just the same, and then took a vacation for 2 episodes. But let's talk about Peacemaker, all right? Should probably roll that spoiler thing just to be on the safe side. All right. So this episode picks up with probably what was the best cliffhanger we've had so far, which was Adebayo wearing Peacemaker's X-ray helmet, looking around with it, thinking, oh, this is cool. Oh, this is cool. Hey, Mr. Byrne. Oh, my God, you got a butterfly in your head. Then he gets up and chases her and filmed the way James Gunn would film that scene, which is like this intense, angry look on his face as he charges the camera to give us that sense of, oh, my God, he's going to kill her. They run outside. He throws her to the ground, and we cut to end credits. Well, this episode picks up right there. He pushes her to the ground, but this time he says, stop. I'm not going to hurt you. And Harcourt shows up, and she's like, Harcourt, give me my gun. Give me my gun. Which is kind of a weird thing to say, because personally, I would go, Harcourt, he's a butterfly. Kill him. Assuming Harcourt has her own gun on her or can reach that gun. Just give me my gun just seems kind of odd. But it turns out that not only is Myrn a butterfly, but Harcourt had already figured it out and had talked to him about it, which I thought was kind of interesting because it really kind of moves the story forward quickly. And when you go, well, wait, what? How did she know? Well, it turns out back in episode 2, when Peacemaker and Vigilante was it episode 2 or episode 3? Episode 3, I think it was. Were trapped in the basement of Goff's house, and Myrn put that bomb on the door, and then it wasn't working after he got clear, and he went back over to check it, and it blew up in his face, and he was okay. The fact that he survived that explosion told Harcourt that Myrn was a butterfly. So, but she also took into the fact that he's the one giving them all the information, that he's helping them out. So she talked to him instead of attacked and figured it out. And we also find out that John Economos knows. But John pretends he doesn't, because John doesn't want to be in that situation where Amanda Waller asks him a question and he has to lie. So he puts his fingers in his ears and says the la la la, I can't hear you thing, so that he can have plausible deniability. But Adebayo calms down and gets a chance to ask questions, and we learn a few interesting things, like the fact that Goff, the butterfly that was in the senator that Peacemaker has captured is actually the queen, and that she and all of the other butterflies want to take over the planet, where Myrn was like, no, these people are saving, and you can't hurt these people. Come on. And he gets kicked out of his own group because he's too nice. So then he decides he's got to stop him, and he needs a body to do it. So he finds the worst person possible, Myrn, and takes over his body. And then with he's still getting all the memories and stuff. And you get this emotional outburst from him because he says that even Myrn, with all the bad things he done, could have been saved. There was a soul in there. There was redemption for this guy. There could have been redemption for him, and it hurts the butterfly inside of him to have done it, and he feels guilty about it. And it's like, wow, that's pretty in depth. I mean, James Gunn has this knack of giving you this surface layer that you could just watch and enjoy. And it's kind of silly and it's over the top. And sometimes it's gross and sometimes it's funny. And just this surface layer that a lot of people like. And then when you watch a little closer, there is this underlying story that he gives in all his stuff, whether it's the whole found family thing on Guardians of the Galaxy, or just the stories like that, or daddy issues in Suicide Squad, and that continues here. But this is a whole thing about redemption arcs. This is a redemption arc for Myrn, or the butterfly trying to redeem for Myrn, for Peacemaker, who's becoming less of a killer. He's growing a conscience, and you just see that in these arcs going through. And again, daddy issues, but there seems to be daddy issues in everything James Gunn does. I mean, Peter Quill's daddy was a problem. Yeah, and then Bloodsport's daddy dropping him into a box full of rats. And then Peacemaker's dad, wow. Yeah, he's a piece of work. But so you got all this going on. And while this is happening, the police are able to get a warrant to arrest Christopher Smith, Peacemaker, because they've shown the evidence to Detective Singh's uncle, Judge Judy, and they get the warrants and stuff, and Locke can't stop them. That's the mercenary that used to work with Myrn, who's now the chief of police, or the police captain, and they're going to raid Peacemaker's trailer. Now, we know that there is this fake diary, this forged diary that Amanda Waller had put together and had Adebayo drop in there. But we don't know the true ramifications of that. But it seems like that's going to work against him. And, what Waller was doing was she setting Peacemaker up to take the fall when this is all done. Like, all these people that were murdered, they, to cover up the fact that there were these butterflies and alien invasion, she just pins it all on Peacemaker, as in he's, crazy, and anything he says is insane. I had missed that, Kyle. Yeah. Kyle does the same thing that John Economos does when we talk about the show, because he's behind. Kyle puts his fingers in his ears. La, la, la. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. So. All right. So the police are heading to Myrn's, or to Peacemaker's house, and they're trying to get information to him. And he and Vigilante are there, and they discovered that the butterfly the Goth butterfly, or the queen butterfly, is communicating with them. And she's doing it by first putting a peace symbol on the glass. Now, I know a lot of people immediately went, oh, she's trying to show that she comes in peace. Or, since the character's name is Peacemaker, a peace symbol seems like a good idea. And perhaps she has a problem drawing the dove of peace as well as Chris does. So I don't necessarily think they come in peace. And then by the end of the episode, you're pretty sure they don't come in peace. But the police, they get up to the roof. They get up through the skylight just as the police get there. And they're trying to get away. And they've got the bottle with the butterfly in it. And as they're trying to get away, there's some really great things that happen in this scene. The police are interesting, but Vigilante immediately pulls out a weapon and is going to start killing cops. And Peacemaker's like, wait, no, we don't kill cops. And he just kind of shrugs. Like, Vigilante is a real sociopath. I mean, as much as we're seeing Peacemaker grow a conscience, Vigilante doesn't have one. To the point where Peacemaker is kind of being introspective and says that when he goes, well, why do you still have that butterfly? He says it's the same thing with Eagly. I try to make up for I try to compensate for my questions of my own manhood by having dangerous pets. And Vigilante's response is basically, I'd leave that introspective stuff alone because the mind is a den of scorpions and it's better to be run from than towards. And it's a very telling thing where, yes, Chris is changing. He doesn't want to kill. He can kill. You know, when it was in a warehouse full of aliens, he was fine blowing things up. But he doesn't want to just kill random, he doesn't want to kill humans or innocent people. And this is a big change for him. Well, Vigilante doesn't seem to have that problem. And he's not being introspective at all. So I think Vigilante is kind of what Peacemaker used to be. And as we see them drifting apart, it becomes more and more interesting. Mark says, still wondering how White Knight was supposed to stay in jail and why the replacement chief wanted him to stay. White Dragon is, they were doing everything to lock him up. And they've played it so far like it wasn't part of the plan. I just happened to put your dad's name on there. And, we just happened to tell the two witnesses to point at the old guy. But it seems like there's something else there. There's an added layer there. And it could be that Amanda Waller just wanted him off the streets, that wanted to put the White Dragon away. But yeah, we still need to see what that final plan was, because it was too convenient, all the things they did to jack up White Dragon, to jack up Augie Smith. And don't get me wrong, he deserves it. But, it was a little over the top. And so it can't just be a coincidence. It seems like somebody was trying to get him in jail. And since, the computer records all said, oh, yeah, it's the same fingerprints, he would have stayed there had Singh not gone through and Singh and Fitzgibbons pushed through and showed the judge the actual different fingerprints. So, but as let's finish with Peacemaker trying to escape his own trailer. They get out into the woods, and as they're running along, Eagly comes in. And this was the best use of a bird I've seen in a long time. That eagle is jacking everybody up. And you get into it, you're like, go, oh yeah, Eagly, yeah. And then suddenly Eagly is pulling someone's eye out of their socket. And you're like, ooh, no, back up, a little back. Back it up just a bit, Eagly. That's a little aggressive. Don't need to take eyeballs, but good work on helping them get away. So, and then they run into Locke, the fake cop, who then shoots a couple of cops and says, "There's a car waiting over there. Get out of here." And then he sits around and waits for Fitzgibbon and Singh to show up. But as they're getting away, the jar drops and the butterfly gets out. Well, the butterfly immediately goes in to Detective Singh. And it's gross. It's not a comfortable transition from butterfly to parasite human. No, there's a lot of blood, a lot of pain. And when we look at the thing, they're actually boring out the head and taking its place. So yeah, I would think it would be very painful. But yeah, it's an interesting way. When they show it, it's pretty graphic and it's pretty over the top. So yeah, that was interesting. And so she's now got the Goff dragon inside, Goff butterfly inside of her, taking over the queen. And then we see the white dragon gets out of prison, Augie, and he gets picked up by one of his followers and goes back to some place. It might be his house. I mean, I think it is his house because he goes into the dimensional portal, but it didn't look like his house. So maybe he's got an entrance to that room from multiple places. But he hooks up with a girl who is also a white supremacist. And then he suits up in the white dragon costume, and all of his followers have white hoods on, but instead of up to a single point, they're up into a dual point, which looks like, horns, like his costume. So we're definitely getting a showdown between White Dragon and Peacemaker next week, or this week when it comes up. That is definitely happening, and we've seen it in a clip for the trailer too. That he actually sees his dad in costume. He goes, "What are you doing?" And Augie's like, "I'm doing what I should have done years ago." And we do get a flashback moment where we see that Chris actually killed his brother, and Augie's angry about it. So it was hard to tell whether Augie wanted Chris to kill his brother or if it was an accident. And now we know that it was an accident, but we also got a scene where the fact that James Gunn will, in the middle of doing all this huge storytelling, he'll do these little comedic beat scenes, and they're like, it's almost like, I don't want to say an appetizer, but it's like a little something different. It's like that swig of water you take between wine tastings, just a palate cleanser. And he gives us this scene in a high school classroom as Peacemaker is telling the story about how he went after Kite Man, and that's how, the criminal that put him on the map. And all the kids in the class are asking him questions. And what it turns out is it's the janitor from the hospital, his daughter's class, and he needs someone interesting to bring in for, career day or whatever it is. So he got a hold of Peacemaker and had him come in. And of course, Peacemaker is Peacemaker. So he says a lot of inappropriate things. They of course ask him questions. One guy asks if he has a coterie of supervillains, just like his dad's neighbor had asked. And you go, wait, how many people know the word coterie? And then, of course, there was one girl who was dressed in a Flash shirt who had a gap in her tooth and red hair, and he referred to her as the gender-swapped Alfred E. Newman, who wanted to know about the Flash. And, of course, he says, no, I met him. I think the same thing. Everybody thinks that he's kind of a D-bag. And then there was a question about Wonder Woman, and he's kind of giving mean nicknames to all these kids, that bullying thing that he does. But it's just kind of an odd little sub thing that was like completely out of place. But it reminds you, oh yeah, there's humor in this show too. We're not going to get too serious. We're going to have moments like this. But so Vigilante and Peacemaker get away from the cops. Locke, when Fitzgibbon shows up and wants a description of who killed the other cops, Locke gives him the description of the Hamburglar. Remember from McDonald's? Striped outfit, black cape, black fedora, mask, red tie. That's how he describes him. He says, all I heard him say was robble, robble. All right, we're going to pause there. It is our halfway point. Yeah, a little over. So we will come back, talk more about Peacemaker, and then talk about the Book of Boba Fett finale right after this. Be right back.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit ComicShopLocator.com to find a store near you.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Dan Wickline Show. We are talking about the latest episode of Peacemaker, and then we're going to talk about the what to expect in tonight's Book of Boba Fett, tomorrow morning's Book of Boba Fett finale. Stick around after this show. We have Black Comic Universe with Amani Latif. Then we'll have Minute to Skim It with Miss Jen and Bean as they go through some of the latest books. And then after that, I will be back with producer Kyle as we do In Stores this week, where we're going to talk about books like the new Draculina #1 from Dynamite. We've also got a new Norse mythology book from Neil Gaiman and P. Craig Russell, and a couple other really, really interesting titles. So you'll want us to come back. Even the second issue of Apache Delivery Service, which is a surprisingly really fun book, a good book to read. So join us at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern for In Stores this week. But stick around, just leave the experience on. We've got some great shows between now and then. All right. Also, I just want to take a quick second and thank you guys for putting up with all of my talk of the Karma Kickstarter over the last month. We wrapped that up on Thursday of last week. It did well. I'm real happy. We're going to move forward, start looking at getting it printed and getting it out there. And we're already starting to talk about maybe doing a sequel. So we'll have to see how all that pans out. But I appreciate you guys putting up with all the conversation about it. And if you backed it or even checked it out, thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, let's get back to it. Once Peacemaker and Vigilante got away, they headed back to the video store. And we get basically Peacemaker tells them that he had the butterfly, even though he said he destroyed it. And they're like, why didn't you tell us? He's like, I don't trust you guys. Why would I trust you? And there's this kind of moment where it's like they're not, even though they were starting to act like a team when they went to the distribution place, there's still things that they're not revealing. And the fact that they haven't told him that Myrn is a butterfly is one of those things. The fact that he didn't tell him that he'd captured Goff is another thing. But it turns out that while this whole thing's going on, we find out that Economos has discovered where the cow is. Now, we don't know what the cow is. We don't know if it's an actual cow or it's some kind of space creature or what it is. But it's the source of that honey-colored goo that they eat. So somewhere on a farm, they have discovered where this is. And they're, getting together the idea of going out and taking out this cow. But we get some more human moments at this. Peacemaker at one point says, why don't you guys trust me? We're not stupid. And then they look over at Vigilante, and Vigilante is sitting next to Eagly and goes, hey guys, which one's me and which one's Eagly? He goes, okay, so you're half right, but you can still tell me what's going on. He has a couple good moments with Harcourt, who we find out her first name is Amelia. She tells him that she's put a dove of peace on his gun for the next day. And you see that there's a little bit of a connection going on. I don't know about a love connection, but she's actually starting to accept him for a little more of who he is. And he admits to her that he doesn't want to kill anymore. He doesn't mind killing aliens, but, he's growing a conscience. And, again, that's kind of the opening up moment. And then she takes off. And then we switch over and we see Detective. By the way, I've been saying it wrong. I've been saying it's Detective Singh. It's actually Detective Song. And Detective Song, the queen inside of her, has called in all the other butterflies. And then a big swarm of them. And I don't know what a group of butterflies is called, but I'm going to go with swarm because that's what this acted like. And they basically head into the police station / prison. And you get this insane, horrific thing of these butterflies swooping in and taking over cops and criminals alike. And it's bloody, it's violent. You see these people trying to run and hide. Fitzgibbons is running through the police station trying to get away, but he still gets nailed. And then you end up with this whole group of butterfly-infested cops and criminals. And it's like, okay, that's now an army. So you've got that built up. At the same time, you've got White Dragon has suited up in his outfit, and he's got his army. So it's like, okay, so you got both these sides going on. You've got Myrn, who is a butterfly, but they haven't told Peacemaker yet, so we're not sure. Do we trust him? Do we trust the butterflies? There's still karate master? No, judo master. Still judo master out there somewhere, and we know he's going to pop up again. So you've got all these different things going on, and James Gunn decides we need a musical interlude. We've been getting so much character development. We needed an introspective moment for Peacemaker. And they set it up early when they move into the video store. John Economos says, oh, great, we have a piano. That'll come in handy. Well, it turns out John Cena sits down at the piano and plays a piano cover of Motley Crue's Home Sweet Home. And it's really good. And it's really him. That's the interesting thing. You can tell when they're filming an actor pretending to play the piano, because they'll do close up on hands and then they'll do a shot like over the top of the piano. So they never show face and hands in the same shot or a continuous shot, because they're usually not. It's really hard to film someone, even a professional. It's hard to film them playing piano to get the sound to match up. So the fact that they took the time to film him playing the piano. Cena has big hands, but his fingers are a little pudgy. So it's obviously his hands when we see him. But they do stuff like pan down from his face straight to his hands without a cut. Or they pull back from the side so we see his face and his hands playing the piano at the same time. And it's like, I had to look it up to make sure, but I'm like, I'm fairly sure that John Cena is playing that piano. And it turns out he is. He plays piano. There are videos out there of him playing piano live. And it's really interesting that they worked it into the show, because it does show another form of introspection that he's going through. And it shows a talent that he has just for himself. Somebody talked about how everything is from this certain era for him. The songs he picks, his car, all of that stuff is from right around the time that his brother died. And it's almost like he's tried to stop the world at that point. So that's why that's the music he likes and plays, and that's why he drives an old Mercury Cougar, and why, all this stuff that he does is very dated to around the time that his brother would have died. So I think that stunted, because he killed his brother, and I think that stunted his growth, his connection, and I think that's what he has to move past. That's where he has to move through. So will we get that? I think we are. I think that's that's the sub story that James Gunn is giving us. That below the surface story that I was talking about earlier is this growth that Chris is going through. And by the time we're done, now I know that they've talked about, we really would love to do a second season, and Gunn has another spinoff series he's talking about, and he loves working with John Cena. But it's possible that we might get to the point where Cena hangs up. If they don't do a second season, we could end with Peacemaker hanging up the gear, going on to do something else, because he won't be a killer at that point. Can he be a hero? And that's going to be the big question, is if he's no longer a psychopathic killer, which is what Amanda Waller needs, what is he then? And where does he go from here? And then, of course, the cops have that fake diary, which makes it sound like he's done all this stuff. He's killed all these people. So now there's a huge manhunt out for him. So even if he gets through all this alive, he may end up back in jail. And if he's not, like I said, the cold-hearted killer that Amanda Waller wants on Suicide Squad, what's going to happen to him? So there are some really interesting questions going into this finale. And we've got, like I said, 2 episodes left. They could wrap all this up in this next episode. You got all the opposing forces, you bring them all together into a big battle, and you wrap it up. But they're not. They're taking 2 episodes. They've got us to what should have been a penultimate episode, but still have 2 episodes to go. So it's really going to be interesting to see what they take care of next episode and what they hold out for the finale. Because it looks like we're going to get the showdown with his dad coming up. And maybe they deal with that over the second, the 7th episode. And then the butterflies is the 8th episode. Now, I'd love to see them do that, because I'd really like to see him wrap up one of the stories and then focus on the other, because that's better. That's a better canvas to paint on, in a sense. You have more time, you can stretch it out. But then you could also do it over like a big 2-hour thing or 2-episode as well. But I think there's a chance, they have a chance to do some fun stuff. They could bring in cameos. I'd love to see them bring in a cameo that solidifies this as part of the DCEU. Yes, he was in Suicide Squad, but, and Economos and Harcourt were, but they were minor characters. I would love to see one of the big characters show up, even if it's for like a moment. Like at the end of the fight, Superman lands, looks around and goes, "Oh, I guess you've got this covered," and then fly off. Just something like that to kind of ground it in the DCEU. I think it would be interesting, because they've gone out on a limb on some of this stuff, like mentioning Batmite and Matter Eater Lad, that it would be interesting to see them turn around and ground it again, at least solidly in the MCU, so that those wild moments become even more real. But that's my thought on that. I cannot wait to see what they do next, and I am still watching that opening credit scene when it plays. Still trying to figure out those dance moves. That weird one where they come out, that's the hard part, But all right. So let's talk about tonight's Book of Boba Fett. It is the opposite of Peacemaker. It doesn't surprise me that the opening credit dance is a trend on TikTok. It had to become one. I don't have TikTok because I'm old, but I should probably look out there to see, because, yeah. So it feels like with Book of Boba Fett, I'm loving Book of Boba Fett as a fan. I am cringing at it as a writer, because you don't take your title character and put him on the bench for your, two complete episodes of a 7-episode run, especially episodes 5 and 6. Boba Fett has had 10 seconds of screen time and no dialogue for 2 episodes. The Mayor's Major Domo has had more screen time. The BD-1 droid had more screen time than Boba Fett in the Book of Boba Fett. They've brought in so much. You had to have seen. I can't imagine somebody who only watched this get it. You had to have watched The Mandalorian to understand Cobb Vanth and some of these other characters, and having a background with, not all of it is necessary. You don't have to have watched the Clone Wars to understand Cad Bane. You get the fact he's a gunslinger, he's a badass guy, and he's hired to kill people. You get that. Black Chrysanthemum, you didn't need to read all the comics to get the fact that he's a big badass Wookiee. We get that. I don't even know who exactly Danny Trejo character is, but he, of course, came across as a badass because he's Danny Trejo. So you've got all these characters coming in together. They're set up. But it seems like there's a lot to wrap up. And it could be that part of it is, we've done this with every Disney Plus show so far. We see all the plot threads as something bigger than they are. Oh, how is he going to answer this thing? Like with the WandaVision. Well, who's the missing witness? They never told us. And there was certain things that we thought they needed to wrap up. Oh, Quicksilver, we got to find out. Is he mutant? Is he going to... No, he's just some guy named Boner. And they've done that with all these shows. We go into them saying, oh my God, how are they going to be able to wrap all this up in one episode? And then they wrap it up pretty well in one episode. But they don't give us all the answers we expect. They just tell us the story they want to tell. And that is what fascinates me about these, is because even going into something like this, it's like, oh, well, there better be Tuscans. I hear people saying there better have Tuscans showing up because of all the setup for the Tuscans. And there's no way that the biker gang are the ones that killed the Tuscans. It had to be Cad Bane. Oh, Cad Bane, maybe, he's working for the Pikes. Oh, no. He has more connection to the Hutts. So he's probably working for the Twins and trying to use the Pike gang and Boba Fett against each other. And everybody is looking for these deep layers. And sometimes, to paraphrase Freud, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. I think that's Freud that said it, or it was said about Freud. But, yeah. So, going into tonight's episode, I don't have any real expectations. I don't have any, oh, I think this is going to be revealed, and they're going to tell us about this and that and this other thing. Because at this point, I don't know. I don't know how much, I definitely didn't think we were going to have Jedi Academy last week. And I really didn't think episode 5 was going to be chapter 17 of The Mandalorian. But that's what we got. We spent more time with Cobb Vanth than we did Boba Fett. With Cad Bane and the Marshal, who is the deputy who's now no longer with us. There was a lot of stuff they gave us in that episode that kind of superfluous to the overall story. The only real story development that we got was the Pike blowing up Sanctuary and Madame Garza. I always want to say her full name, Garza Fwip, because I say Fwip and I think of Stewie from Family Guy saying cheese whip, Garza Fwip. So it's hard to say what's going to happen, or, to even speculate what's going to happen in Book of Boba Fett tonight, because we may spend the first 10, 15 minutes with Grogu making his decision on which way he's going to go in his Lone Wolf and Cub, decision. And then once he picks it, then Luke might show up, go, by the way, here's your kid back, and why are you hanging out with that guy? He tried to freeze my friend. They could do that. We might end up with suddenly spending, half an episode figuring out who these mod bikers are, why they have the mod bikes, how they got them. We could end up just watching them do service on their bikes and how we keep them clean for 15 minutes. It could take up that much of the episode, or I don't know, one of the Gamorrean guards picking ticks off of Black Chrysanthemum. They really might go anywhere. That's the thing about the show, is it's really hard to say because they're not following normal writing patterns. They're not set up and payoff and act one structure. It's kind of all over the place. And they're, the flashbacks were as much part of the main story, but they just kept going back and forth. And oh man, and the flashback to Tank. It's just such an odd series that I've watched it twice. I watched each one as they aired, and then I went back and I watched 1 through 5 again in a binge. And it's much better in a binge because that slow build doesn't seem as slow when you got all of them back to back. It just seems like, oh, we're 5 episodes in? That seems fast. Where watching it week by week, you're going, what? Why are we still here? Seems like we should be much further along by now. So the fact that they've got 1 episode left, and of course the other thing you hear is, well, they have to do a longer episode. This has to be like almost 2 hours. No, it doesn't. I heard something the other day that it may be a 38-minute episode. They're not working to our expectations, yet they're giving us a lot of fan service. So it's kind of a, everybody wanted Cad Bane. Cad Bane's here. There you go. You got your Cad Bane. I wanted Bosk, but they don't listen to me. But we got Cad Bane. We got more Luke Skywalker and a better looking Luke Skywalker, to the point where it's kind of scaring me that we might be able to make a movie someday without anybody and it not be an animated movie. So we just have people fill in and then use them as... It's a really weird world. Can you win an Oscar for playing somebody else? That seems like it's going to be a question in the future. You do a replacement of Gone with the Wind, and Clark Gable, is up for the part. They do it as Clark Gable, but do you give it to the actor who then portrayed Clark Gable, or do you give it posthumously to Clark Gable? Or so many questions are opening up because of that. So, all right. Tomorrow we are going to talk about Reacher. So, Mark, finish it up so you can join us. It should be a great conversation. I'm really enjoying it. I'm actually rereading the first book. What Dan doesn't know is that this is a CGI rendering of Kyle playing Dan. I'm okay with that because that means that Dan would be over taking a nap right now and he could use that. So we'll talk Reacher and Vox Machina tomorrow. We'll talk the finale of Book of Boba Fett on Thursday. But stick around for Black Comic Universe with Amani Latif, and then Minute to Skim It with Miss Jen and Bean. And I will be back with Kyle for In Stores this week. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.